I've been doing stuff with pit bulls for over 20 years. I'm a registered veterinary technician, and what that is pretty much a dog nurse. So I started out originally showing dogs. Showed, bred in the UKC, have some nationally ranked dogs in the UKC. And from there, I started seeing how the dogs weren't being treated like they were supposed to. People just breeding them just for the money, and it just wasn't what I wanted to do. So I said, yeah, I need to do something more positive. So I got into rescue. From rescue, started saving the dogs, pulling the dogs from the shelters, kind of like what Canine CellMates does. Putting them in foster homes and stuff like that. And then I started thinking more about it. I was like, okay, this is great, but this doesn't keep the dogs out of the shelters. They're just going to keep coming back in, keep coming back in. It's like you pull them out, the faster they go back in. We need to somehow put a stop to this. So I decided I was going to start doing outreach, and that's what my organization mainly does. We go into the inner city and we educate the residents and the owners of the dogs how to care for them, what they need to do regarding pet care, health care, and just knowledge about owning a dog. And some of the places that we go, for example, here, the inner city of Atlanta, we go to the English Avenue, the Bluff, Pittsburgh, Lakewood, Adair Park, and East Point. Those are our main focuses, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with. What we do. So this whole PowerPoint thing, I apologize, is still new, so I'm used to just rambling. So the educating, like I said, we go over, from A to Z with how to care for your dog, vaccinations. We get the people's dogs spayed and neutered so we don't have unwanted puppies in the pound that are getting euthanized for no reason, can't find homes, or wandering the street and getting hit by a car. Promoting awareness, and that's part of just letting people know that, a lot of people don't realize, they think when a dog goes to the animal shelter, it's safe. It's some sweet little family's gonna come by and pick it up. But no, they usually have a 7-day waiting period, that's it. And then they're euthanized. So that's something that we really like to promote, because people don't know that. And if they do know that, maybe there aren't so many turnovers, people turning over their animals. Sometimes they're just for the littlest reasons, when if they had the education, they wouldn't turn them over, they'd keep their dog. Doing the mentoring of the residents, I always have access to me via phone. They have questions about their dogs, medical questions. If their dog's sick, we go and help them. We help them get off of chains. We're building fences now for people that own their homes, and those that don't own their homes, we build runner systems. It's a 50-foot runner that frees up the dog, because here in Fulton County, unfortunately, you cannot tether a dog or you get cited, fined, and your dog taken from you. Like I said, we spay and neuter all of our dogs, all the dogs for the residents and the people of the inner city and the areas that we go to at no charge to them. They get their vaccines, rabies, distemper, and then we also help with any flea control, medical care. If the dog gets sick, we treat parvo. Laceration repairs. There's been times that I've had to do a minor little surgery right in the middle of the sidewalk. Some of the things that we do. Here's some pictures. We donate food. We give food, like if times get tough, between checks, don't have enough to feed your dog, we want to be sure the dogs are always eating. So we donate food, leashes, collars. These are just some pictures of us dealing with some of the residents, some of the dogs, and some of the things that we do. We get dog houses for those that don't, because shelter is very important for the dogs. Hay when it's cold outside. Here's me vaccinating. Here, by educating owners about proper health care, behavior, and training, we're helping them to be better pet owners. And they really then want to take care of their dogs once they understand how simple and what they really need to do. So, do you guys know about spay and neuter? You guys familiar? Anyone not familiar with spays and neuters? Okay. I always like to ask. So spaying and neutering, there's lots of reasons why we do it. Spaying is when we fix the female dog. That's what the spay is. Neuter is altering the male. When a female is spayed, she actually, it's a full ovarian hysterectomy. All of her female parts are removed. So that way she no longer goes through a heat cycle. It stops the heat cycle. Once they're spayed, they no longer have the chances of getting mammary cancer, which is very common in unspayed females. Their chances of mammary cancer is usually about 60%, which can shorten their lifespan a good 3 to 5 years. And then also they get what's called pyometra. When a female dog isn't bred after her heat cycle, I'm sure you all know, have seen a dog in heat, her hoo-ha gets about this big. And of course, majority of the dogs live outside. Well, it's not always clean conditions. Dirt gets in that area and it works its way up into her uterus. And what happens is that it gets infected. It turns into pus. And the whole uterus fills up with pus. It gets so big, you have to have an emergency spay, which costs about $1,000 for your dog to live. If you don't, your dog's going to die, because what that uterus does is like a balloon. You can only expand it so far, and then it ruptures, and then you have pus all in the abdomen. And they get septic and they die, and it's a horrible death. So those are the main reasons why, and the positive reasons for spaying your dog. Neutering your dog stops them from wandering the streets, because of course they can smell about 2 miles of female in heat, and they're going to go, and because they got one thing on their mind: prostate cancer, which they both can die from, and that's getting them fixed totally eliminates the testicular cancer, but it can stop the prostate cancer, and that too is another 60% chance of them getting it. Here, a lot of people don't think about this in regards to spays and neuters. Say you have one dog. You have a female dog, you didn't get her fixed, and she lives out in the yard, and next door, down the street dog jumped the fence and got her. You found homes for all these puppies, but she's still unfixed. None of those puppies were fixed. Well, once they go into their heat cycle, which is usually between 6 and 7 months, depends on if it's a little dog or a big dog, they can get impregnated. So you think one dog has one litter, say she has 10 puppies. Those 10 puppies, say 5 of them are females, to make it easier. 5 are females, they go get knocked up, they have another 10 puppies. So there's 50, and then they have more puppies. So next thing you know, one dog can create 200 extra dogs that don't have homes. So, and then it's even worse with cats, because cats are like bunny rabbits. They go into heat cycle if they're not bred. And right after they have kittens, they're back into a heat cycle. So that's just another importance of getting them spayed. It's just so many dogs just ending up in the shelters, on the streets, in bad situations, and then their life is, they're killed. So those are our main points of spays and neuters. Vaccinating. Do any of you guys, have you ever heard of parvo? Yeah. Have you guys ever had a dog with parvo? Okay. You know how that's horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. So what parvo is something that we vaccinate against. It's one of the vaccines that we give. Parvo is a disease that attacks the GI, the intestines. And what it does, it attacks the inside of the lining, and the lining sloughs off. So your intestines is where you actually absorb all your nutrients for your food, and so that your body can thrive. Well, because that lining is being shut off, no nutrients are being absorbed. So the dog gets sick there and start losing a whole bunch of weight. Then you see the vomiting, the diarrhea, and then they get sicker and sicker within just days. Then you'll start to see the bloody diarrhea. And when you see the bloody diarrhea, that's actually the insides of their intestines coming out. So it's a really horrible, horrible, painful death. So if you think of, the worst stomachache you've ever had in your entire life, times 1,000, it's that excruciating pain, and they usually always die without treatment. So that's why vaccinating is so important. And mainly parvo hits puppies. Parvo is they get parvo by going into the dirt and stuff that's been contaminated. Say it's fecal contamination is what it is. And it doesn't even have to be that they actually stepped in the poop. It could be a dog that actually pooped, could have been 2 weeks ago, and it was cleaned up, but they were shedding that virus. The dogs walk around because they got to go do their business, come inside and groom themselves, and there they go. They ingested the virus if they're not vaccinated. So that is really another important reason of vaccinating against parvo. Another disease they get is distemper. Distemper is a disease that actually attacks their neurological system, and it also can attack their GI system. It has lots of crazy symptoms. It can start out as the dog having neurological disorders, being disoriented, having seizures, to the dog just vomiting and diarrhea. And some people will think, oh, I think my dog has parvo, but it's really not. Then it'll start showing different signs. Sometimes it'll just start off with being sick, runny nose, weeping eyes, hacking. So it's just really hard to test with, to be, oh, that's definitely parvo. And there's not a snap test or an easy test for distemper. They actually have to send blood off to get the results on that. So that's another, usually those dogs too that do get distemper, 75% of them die. It's really hard to treat just because it attacks the nervous system. Those dogs that do survive, a lot of times they have long-term effects. They'll have seizures down the road. They'll have neurological disorders down the road. So it is just, another thing, even though you got your dog well, there might be some long-term effects down the road. Another good reason of why to vaccinate your dog. Rabies is another one, and of course rabies is one that we have to get by law. In the state of Georgia, rabies is passed on by being bitten by the saliva of rabies vectors. It's like coyotes, it's okay. Coyotes, bats, raccoons. There's several other different vectors, but it's some of the wild animals out there that they get it and they're bitten by them. Yeah, and rabies is not curable. And the only way to test for rabies, say a dog was starting to show some weird signs, so a crazy aggression and some it's usually neurological signs, and then all of a sudden they'll be like, we call it like a mad dog. They're nuts. They're circling. They're hitting the walls, attacking the wall, doing crazy things. The only way to test for it is you have to euthanize the dog. You have to cut off their head, and you have to send it to animal control for the results of that. So it's really, really important to get the rabies vaccine. And along with that, if Fulton County drove by and decided to stop, or if the neighbors called on about your dogs and you don't have your rabies tag, it's like a $500 fine. It's crazy, just for a $10 vaccine that you can actually get at animal control these days. So those are the main things that we vaccinate for. There are other vaccines, Lyme and leptospirosis and stuff we had discussed like in the past. And those are those are vaccines that are more given to animals in different areas. Depends on where you live. Like if you live in the mountains, you'd want to give your dog lepto and Lyme's, because Lyme is for the ticks, where you're like in a tree area where your dog could get ticks. Leptospirosis, if you're in a wooded area with streams and stuff like that, and they're drinking the water, they pick up lepto, which attacks their liver. They usually survive with hospitalization, but usually it's raccoons, and it's raccoon urine and feces that, they're good. The wild animals got to drink, so they're going down to the stream, getting there, and they're relieving themselves, and it gets into the stream, and then it's just floating in the stream, and the dogs drink it, and they get contaminated.